Outdoors with Tom Gruenwald is brought to you in part by HT Premium Ice Tackle and by Polar Fire, advanced cold weather clothing systems, and these other fine sponsors.
Mobridge, your all-season fishing destination.
Hello everyone and welcome to Tom Gruenwald Outdoors. I'm Tom Gruenwald. We've got a special show lined up for you today. This is actually the premiere episode, the first taping of a Tom Gruenwald Outdoors show. What we wanted to do is be able to get you out in a really nice location and show you the basic equipment used for ice fishing, tip-ups, rods, sonar, the whole gamut. We got a hold of Steve Nesbitt from Lost Lake Lodge up in Republic, Michigan. It's a beautiful site, nice cabin, warm fireplace, simple light snowmobile ride down the hill and onto a beautiful stock trout lake filled with rainbow and brook trout. Not big fish, mind you, not a trophy fishery, but a beautiful lake with beautiful fish. And it's a great opportunity really to show how to use some basic ice fishing equipment. Steve's a little bit camera shy, but he came down and joined us, which allowed us 2 extra lines. We had a couple of guys on our camera crew that love to fish, so we got a couple of tip-ups set for them, plus my own, and we had Scott Steffes along from the HT office. He came in and joined us as well, gave us a couple more lines. It gave us the opportunity to put down some polars, polar pop-ups, windlass, different tip-ups, and we're gonna show you how a couple of those work today. If you've never ice fished before, this is a great show for you to watch. We're not going to be catching a lot of fish, but what we're going to be doing is showing how to use the equipment, how to set up these tip-ups, how to rig these tip-ups specifically for trout. We might use larger hooks or a little bit different rig if we're fishing larger game fish. This is a great opportunity to see how the basic equipment actually works. You're going to get to see also jigging. We're going to take some jig rods out, we're going to use sonar, and we'll show you on the sonar screen what your lure looks like, what a fish might look like when it comes in, how you can actually watch those fish react and respond to your presentations, which allows you the opportunity, of course, to go ahead and take that bait, change your motion, and see what it is that's actually triggering those fish to hit. It's an excellent opportunity, and we're going to do that on today's show. And then after we get through with this, we're going to go to part 2. Part 2 is when we'll actually start catching some fish. This show was originally set up to be a 1-hour special. We'll break it into 2 parts. If you've never ice fished before, and you want to learn more about how to use the equipment, this is the show for you. Let's go and hit the ice right now and get started. Hi, welcome to Tom Gruenwald Outdoors. I'm Tom Gruenwald, and today I'd like to be your guide on the ice. We're fishing in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Got a fantastic lake lined up here. Got rainbow trout, brook trout, and there's even a possibility for a brown trout or 2 if we're lucky. What we're gonna do is we're gonna try a few different styles of tip-ups today. We'll also do a little bit of jigging. What I'm gonna do is show you some techniques, tactics, and tricks for taking winter trout through the ice. Hey, let's go give it a try. See if we get these fish to cooperate. All right, well, we've made it down to the lake, and I wanted to talk about that just for a minute. You know, I always research my fishing carefully. I came out and I checked with some local biologists, some of the local Department of Natural Resource agencies, local guides, people I know that fish in this area, and carefully chose a lake that I know has rainbow trout, brook trout, and the chance for a brown, which is of course what we're targeting today. It's a nice first ice time of the year, which is usually the best time. Fish are very active underneath the ice during that first ice period. I've also carefully chosen the location that we're in. I use a GPS and I've used lake maps to find the proper spots that I know are going to have the highest percentage chances of harboring some winter trout. Let's get started. All right, well, we've got some holes drilled now. Now I'm going to show you a few of these tip-ups and the techniques we'll be using for trying to catch these winter trout. Now what I've got right here, using a standard 8-inch hole, which should be more than enough for these trout. And all I've done here is just kind of made a spot so I can get the tip up to rest right down on the ice so that it stays level. I pre-rigged my tip ups, and what I've got here is a polar tip up. It's what's called an underwater tip up, and what's nice about this design is that it's guaranteed against freeze up. There's a tube mechanism here I'm folding out. There's a shaft that runs in here from the trip mechanism down to the spool, and that's encased in a freeze-proof lubricant. So no matter how cold it is, no matter what happens, the trip on this flag, of course, which whenever a fish bites, turns the trip, pops the flag up, will not ever freeze up, which is wonderful. What I did, I've got a 20-pound braided Dacron line that I spooled on here. And the reason I'm using the 20-pound braided Dacron is that's a little bit easier to grab. When you catch a fish on a tip up, you're hand over handing the fish up. You're not reeling it up. It makes it a little easier to grasp the line. And then I'm just going to put that right here in the line guide. That keeps the line coming off the spool evenly. I attached a 6-pound monofilament leader on to the Dacron, just using a simple barrel swivel here. Okay, and I always like to use a ball bearing swivel. That helps to eliminate any line twist that might occur. Got a number 10 treble hook on the end. Didn't go too big for the trout. Don't want too large of a hook, I might miss them. And then of course a split shot there. Real simple rig. So next thing I'm going to do is bait this up. And again, I'm not using very large minnows or very large hooks or anything here for these trout. I expect most of them will probably be in the neighborhood of about maybe 10 to 15 inches, although there are some bigger ones available. And what I'm doing is put the hook right back here just below the dorsal fin and the backbone. That'll keep the minnow nice and alive and moving. And I positioned the hooks this way. Usually the fish tend to hit from the head side, and that puts the points right in the right position so that that minnow can right in the fish's mouth, and the hook will be in the right position to get the best hooking percentage. Going over in about 6 feet of water. So I'm going to lower that down. So try to get that bait just again off of the bottom. I got to make sure I compensate for the length here of the tube. Okay, so I've got probably about a good 3 feet of line there, plus the length of the tube, about 4 feet. That should put me right down just at the top of the zone where we were seeing those trout coming through before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this flag on the smooth side of that trip shaft there. That's the lighter trip for the trout. It's kind of protected from the wind down in there because of the snow that we have. I don't have to worry about wind trips or anything, so we should be all set to go. Now all we do is wait. All right. Here I'm going to try a little different style tip up. I think this stock trout type situation is a great place to try one of these. This is a polar pop-up, and I've got the flag here extended out. When you store it, that gets pushed in this and locked into place so it doesn't pop off. Tip up has a tripod stand that folds out, and the spool goes underwater just like the polar style tip ups, which is of course designed to keep the line from freezing up. What's unique about this tip up though is this magnet right here at the bottom of the flag that I just showed you here that pops up. There's a magnet. And that magnet's concealed inside this tube at the bottom of the flag, and right here on the spool is another magnet. And what I'll do, there's a drag knob on here, so I can loosen this up. And I'll turn the spool so that it aligns. You can actually see that right now when I got it loose. The magnet is snapping. It's attracted to the magnet at the bottom of the flag in assembly. Now I'm just going to push that out a little bit. Of course, the further away I push it, the lighter the setting. Closer, the heavier it is. And I'll just tighten up that drag a little bit so the spool still turns. See the traction there? But I want it so that it doesn't lock up tight, because these fish, I want it so it spins, bites light when the trout hit. Now, what I'm going to do is come up here. I'm going to unlock the top of that flag now. See, it's loose. The only thing that's holding the flag down now is the magnetic tension here on the spool. Now when the spool turns and breaks that tension, the flag pops up at the end. Fish bites, that'll pop up, indicate the strike. We'll come over here and catch the fish. All right, well now that we've got a couple tip-ups down, next thing I'd like to try is to do a little jigging. And this is usually a really effective way to catch trout through the ice. Tend to be very aggressive in the cold water. You can use a variety of different types of baits for these fish. And I've got a couple of rods, of course. I pre-rig things, make it a little easier so when I'm down here I don't have to be working in the cold. I use this HT rod locker, which is nice. Lots of different pockets in here so I can store everything that I need. What I'm going to start out with today is a light action rod. And I've got a couple different models in here, rigged with different baits, so I'm set ahead of time. But this one here has on it is a number 10 HT Marmuska, one of my favorite winter baits. I'm rigged up with a light action Polar Gold rod, which has got a lot of sensitivity here at the tip so I can really see when I'm getting a strike. Yet there's lots of backbone there, plenty of strength to fight the fish, set the hook, and all that good stuff. Using a 6-pound test monofilament and an infinite anti-reverse reel, which is really nice. If you've fished before through the ice and you use some of these reels where you got what they call multi-stops, where the reel doesn't click right in. Sometimes you try to set the hook and that bail will kick backwards a little bit like this when you try to set the hook. With infinite anti-reverse, that'll never happen. And it also gives you perfect depth setting. No matter where you drop in the water column, that bail always locks right in, any place you want it. So you're ready to set the hook and fight the fish. Of course, I want to make sure I got my drag set correctly. I don't want to be too heavy in case I do catch a bigger trout, and there are some bigger ones in here. I added a barrel swivel between my leader and the line going back to the rod. The reason for that is to prevent line twist. Right now I'm only fishing here in about 9 or 10 feet of water, but sometimes we'll go out to 20, 25. And the more I'm dropping that lure down and bring it back up, the more my line can possibly twist. Try to avoid that. And all I'm going to do, you could tip these Marmuskas with a minnow if you'd like. You can use a grub. I'm just going to put a waxworm on here today. Just something to give it a little bit of scent and texture. And I'm hooking that on so it hangs off the end. It can wiggle around a little bit. Sometimes I'll put 2 or 3 grubs on there even, just to help attract fish. That right there should be a good outfit for trying to catch these fish. And of course, I don't go any place without having my electronics. I've got a Markham LX5 here, color readout. And what I'm going to do is just flip this on, drop my transducer in, and it looks like we're at about 19 feet of water here. I don't have my gain set too high, I just want to go enough so I can see the bottom clearly. And there's my bottom. Right now I'm not marking any fish, but we'll try to get that to change here. Drop the lure in. Okay, now if you look there, you'll see my lure, and just above that, that little yellow mark is actually my split shot, or I mean my barrel swivel, I should say. So this unit's so sensitive, it's actually picking up that swivel. Now what I'm going to do is, we had noticed there were some fish off at the bottom earlier, so I'm going to take my jig, I'm going to go right here just off of the bottom to start with, and just start to work the bait a little bit. And sometimes what I like to do is actually take the lure all the way down right there, it's on the bottom. And if you watch, you see I'm bumping the bottom with the lure. Sometimes fish will see that or hear that. And I'll bring the bait up a little bit. What we want to do is watch. This is the surface here. Of course, that's the bottom. So if we see any marks anywhere in between, other than my lure and the swivel, we know there's a fish coming through, and we want to try to get up to that depth. And what I like to do with trout is I'll start like this low, and then I'll just gradually bring my lure upwards. So I was in about 20 feet of water there, and I was right down off of the bottom. Now I'm about 10 feet off of the bottom. And winter trout, a lot of times they will suspend. It's common in winter or summer to see rainbows and browns especially come through higher up. I'm gonna come up a little bit. Earlier when we were setting up, I saw a couple of fish come through right up underneath the ice, 2-3 feet down. So I don't think we're in a bad position right here now at all. That's right about where those fish had come through earlier. Again, we're in about 20 feet of water, and typically I'll see fish suspended when I'm in deeper water. So that's why I'm staying up high. But I'm going to keep working the whole column here. Again, about halfway down. I didn't mark anything yet, so I'm just going to gradually start working the bait back downward again. A couple of feet at a time. Try to see if I can find any fish coming through anywhere. But that's basically all I'm doing. So I'm using the sonar, first of all, to determine if there are any fish here, and if so, what depth. And then once I can do that, I can try different jigs. I can try moving the lure fast, moving it slow, trying big, trying small, trying different styles of lures to see what works the best. This shallower water along the edge of this point, rainbow. Nice fish. Came up and hit that Jigawhopper laser rocker spoon. Boy, are they pretty. Fight so hard. Oh, that's fun. Look at that fish. There we go. Okay, well, we tried the point out there in the middle of the lake. Was able to pick up a fish. Saw some activity, but not quite as much as I'd expected. You know, it's really important in the wintertime. Don't get stuck on one spot. Don't be afraid to move around. Try drilling more holes and trying to really go out and find the fish. One place that kind of struck my eye when we first came out here was this real steep shoreline with a fast drop-off into deep water. Kind of close to where we started out on that point, but across the lake a little bit. I'm going to set up a line of tip-ups here on this. I'll put 3 in a row. I'll kind of wait. I expect Scott to be coming down soon. Maybe we could put a couple more lines off on the other side of these, just follow right along the contour where those trout might be cruising. And then my long-term plan is, right behind me here is actually the deepest water in the lake. And it's important in the wintertime, especially mid-season, to try to set up on structures that are closest to the deepest water in the lake. One thing I've noticed, especially on lakes that get a lot of fishing pressure, where there's a lot of activity on the ice, people running snowmobiles, dragging sleds, that sort of thing. A lot of times, after you start out, you get the early morning bite in the traditional and classic spots in the shallows. A lot of times those fish will just move out of that shallow depth and go out and suspend over that deep water. And they probably will stay at that same depth. If you were fishing 6, 8, 10 feet shallow, you'll probably find them at 6, 8, or 10 feet out there over the deep water. The long-term plan is, after we drilled a few holes here, maybe caught a couple of fish, if it slows down, it's going to be to go and experiment. Just run out there, use the sonar. It's very critical to use that. I get out, I'm in 30 to 40 feet of water out there. If those fish are suspended 6 or 8 feet down, the sonar will help tell me that they're there, and they'll help tell me the depth that I'm going to find them. So I'm going to keep moving, keep running and gunning a little bit, try to intersect some more fish. And Scott should be down here shortly, and that'll give us some more lines as well. So let's go and get to work. Hey, I sure hope you enjoyed today's show. Again, it was originally designed to be a 60-minute special, the original premiere of Tom Gruenwald Outdoors. We broke it into two 30-minute shows. Part 1 today, where we showed you how the polar tip-up works. Also showed you a different style tip-up, the polar pop-up with its magnetic trip system. Showed you a little jigging, and we showed you how to use sonar and identify bottom and fish. And of course, you can watch your lure and watch fish react to that bait, and depending how they respond, adjust your presentation so that you can catch more fish. Part 2 now, you didn't catch a whole lot of fish in part 1 because that was the educational, showing you the gear part of the show. Part 2, we're actually going to get out on the ice now and start catching some brook trout and some rainbow trout on the tip-ups and jigging. And in addition, Scott Steffes from the HT office is going to be joining us. We're going to set up an ice rigger, which is a really, really neat idea. It bridges the gap between a tip-up and an ice rod. You actually can set the ice rigger. It's basically, it looks like a deluxe rod holder. Put your regular rod and reel, your choice of action and length, inside the rod holder. Set the flag. When a fish strikes, the flag pops up, the line peels freely from the reel, and you set the hook when you're ready to catch the fish. You'll get to see us catch a trout on that as well. Hey, I really hope you enjoyed today's show and had a good time and learned something. Please join us again next time as we start catching some brook and rainbow trout right here on Tom Gruenwald Outdoors.